Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 125 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by my partner in crime, the elusive Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. Right. This is going to be a bumper show. It really is. We've got for you two undefeated world champions that will be, coming on as a guest and all the rest of it. We've also got the winner of the T-shirt competition to be announced a little bit later on. So let's waste no more time. Let's get straight underway with the reviewing. Starting from last Thursday. This was the 1st of March. This one happened over in Tokyo, Japan. The rematch for the WBC World Bantamweight title. It was crazy because Luis Nery, who was in one corner, he actually beat Yamanaka for the belt. And then, of course, he failed a drugs test. He wasn't really penalised. He wasn't banned or anything like that. I think he had a fight in the in the aftermath, like a couple months after, something like that. So he wasn't banned, and then they had the rematch here. But going into this fight, by the way, Luis Nery actually fouled the weight, so the belt was only on the line for Shinsuke Yamanaka, who was 27-1 with 2 draws going in. Of course, that one loss came to Nery, and Luis Nery, 25-0, he got in there. He's only a young kid. I mean, people have kind of made their mind up about him a little bit with the drugs test and stuff like that. But anyway, he knocked his man out in the second round, a TKO in round 2, so a huge win there for Luis Nery. But once again, because he fouled the weight, the belt, the WBC World Bantamweight title is still vacant, so nobody has that at the moment. But Luis Nery proceeds now to 26-0. I'm guessing he'll probably move up in weight to Super Bantam. Shinsuke Yamanaka as well, he's now 27-2 with 2 draws, so all the very best to both guys there. Moving over now to the Bowlers Exhibition Centre in Manchester, Lancashire. One fight to mention on this bill, Jazza Dickens, he picked up win number 23. He's of course got 3 losses also. It was a TKO for him against Barney Agules, who was 11-8 going in, now 11-9. That was a TKO there in round 5. Moving over now to the York Hall in Bethnal Green, London. This was a show that I was present for. It was a bit of a madness, to be honest, because the snow was so bad that most of the fights, I think there was supposed to be 9 fights on the bill, and most of those fights fell through. I think there was only 4 at the very end of it. So I'm going to just kind of go over that. We saw, let me start here with, in fact, there was 5 fights in total. DP Carr, he moved to 9-0. It was a points win over 6 rounds against Paul Holt, who was 7-6, so a 6-round points win there. It was quite a close fight as well. The referee scored it 58-57 in favour of DP Carr there. Also on this bill, Harley Ben moved to 3-0. It was a points win over 4 rounds against James Gorman. James Gorman, a journeyman really. He came into the fight with a record of 8-46. Quite a tough kid though. I mean, what I will say about Harley Ben, he seemed to, for the first time, I've watched all of his fights. I've been ringside for all of Harley Ben's fights, and sometimes he seems a little bit nervous for me, and this time he came out to his music. He didn't really seem nervous at all. This time when he was fighting, everything was behind the jab. The jab was, being used to set everything up. He seemed quite relaxed, which I liked. He needs to relax a little bit more, I think, to be a little bit of a better fighter, but he's very much a work in progress. I think he's going to get better and better. He seems to kind of, at this stage, he wants to rush his work a little bit too much. I think that he needs to just calm down a little bit. But yeah, it was the best I've seen him. Despite going the full distance, the referee had it 40-37 in favour of Harley Ben. Also on this bill, Jake Petit moved to 3-0. He knocked out Dennis Bartos, who was 1-1. This was a 3rd round TKO, by the way. Bartos was down twice in the 2nd round and once in the 3rd. Jake Petit, he's a product of the iBox gym, I think it is, down in Bromley. Also on this bill, Zach Chelli moved to 4-0. It was a TKO in round 2 against a guy called Prismslaw Binienda, who was 2-16. Zach Chelli once again shows his punching power. It was only a 4-rounder, but he didn't need those 2 extra rounds. And finally, Sanjeev Sahota moved to 11-0. It was a points win over 8 rounds against Kane Baker, who was 5-2 going in. Now, this fight here was a really good fight. It was the fight of the night. I mean, you know, when you get the measuring stick out, his opponent here, Kane Baker, he got stopped in 2 rounds by Conor Benn. You know, going into this fight here, he had a record, you know, winning record of 5-2, like I say. Not much power, though. That's the only real thing with Kane Baker. He doesn't really have much power. He didn't have enough power to keep Sanjeev Sahota off of him. You know, which wasn't a good thing, obviously. He landed some great shots, though, on Sahota, and he made it a really, really tough night's work for Sahota. Sahota was very lethal when he was going to the body, which I noticed, and I thought that it was the right thing to do, because I think that Kane Baker's got quite a skinny frame, so going to the body with the power shots, I think, was the right thing to do. But Baker's a tough, tough guy, and he showed that here. He snapped Sahota's head back many, many times during the night, and if he did have some power about him, I think he very well could have knocked out Sahota. You know, once again, Sahota was showing me not too much defence. I've criticised him for that in the past. I think that Sahota had quite a big edge in power, and that was really the difference. But, you know, Baker was definitely well in the fight, and it was the best fight of the night, like I say. But going into the 7th round, it was an 8-rounder. Going into the 7th round, it was a very, very tight fight. And, you know, another little criticism with Kane Baker, I think he kind of paused with the jab. He doesn't really throw it. He doesn't turn his shot over properly, especially as the rounds go on. He was just pouring with the jab, and Sahota was visibly tired as well, which was quite surprising. But yeah, as the fight went on, Baker seemed to look the fresher. And in the 8th round and the final round, like I say, it was a very good round for Sahota. He found a bit of a second wind, and I think that Baker's gum shield came out once or twice. He was really, really tired, but it was still a super, super close fight. The referee scored the bout 77-76 in favour of Sahota, so he just about got it by the skin of his teeth there. And I think certainly if Baker won the last round, I'd have definitely gave him the fight, because I think he fought out of his skin. And I don't really like to do it too much, but he got out the ring and I had to literally touch gloves with him. I said, like, well fought, mate, you know. And his girlfriend was watching ringside, which I never think's a good thing for boxers to bring their girlfriends into fights with them, you know, especially if, you know, you're a big underdog like he would have been. So she was getting all nervous, and she actually tapped me on the shoulder at one point and tried to get me to send a message to the corner to ask if Kane Baker's nose was okay and stuff like that, you know. You know, your spouses and stuff like that, and, you know, your family, they get really sensitive, of course. You can't blame them. So I don't think it was a great idea, you know, for his girlfriend to be there. But yeah, it was what it was. I think that to some degree, Kane Baker exposed Sanjeev Sahota a little bit more, and I don't really rate Sahota too much. I think he's definitely an exciting fighter, but certainly, you know, he's not a world beater at all, and he's very easy to hit Sahota. But anyway, that's it for that, Bill. Moving over now to Germany. One fight to mention over here, Avni Yildirim picked up the WBC International Super Middleweight title against Derek Edwards. Derek Edwards is a man that knocked out Badu Jack all those years ago. Avni Yildirim now 18-1. It was a unanimous decision over 12 rounds. Also in Germany, but in a different venue, Enrico Colin got in the ring. I think it's his first fight back since losing to Artur Beterbiev for the vacant IBF title. He picked up a knockout in round 1 against Georgi Beroshvili, who was 30-22 with 3 draws. Enrico Colin now 25-2, and the top of this bill for the vacant EBU light heavyweight title, Dominic Bozell. His record 27-1 now. It was a unanimous decision over Sergey Demchenko, who was 18-12 now with 1 draw. So the new EBU light heavyweight champion there, Dominic Bozell. That's a fight I would quite fancy for Anthony Yard, to be honest. Moving over now to the National Stadium in Dublin, Ireland. One thing that I just want to mention on this bill, they were doing some kind of prize fighter thing, and for those that may not remember prize fighter, it's basically like a 6-man tournament where an 8-man tournament where there'd be 4 fights between 8 men, and they'd be 4 3-round fights, and they would all happen on the same night. So as soon as one of you loses, you go out of the competition, and then of course after the 4 fights in the quarterfinals, there'd be 2 fights in the semi-finals, and the winner of the whole thing who won the final would get like a big bonus prize money. So that was going on here in the National Stadium in Dublin. There was a guy here who ended up winning it, and his name was Roy Sheehan, who I've never actually heard of. He came in to the fight with a record of 1-0. He took on a guy called Vladimir Bajewski, who was 2-0 with one draw. He beat him unanimously over 3 rounds. But what really impressed me is he actually beat JJ McDonough, who was 16-3. JJ McDonough, the guy that knocked out Jake Ball. So I thought that was quite impressive. So like I say, he had 3 fights on this bill, Roy Sheehan. He beat that guy there, 2-0, unanimous decision. Then he beat JJ McDonough, unanimous decision. Then he went into the final against Jack Cullen, who was 11-0, quite a prospect, and he knocked him out in the first round. So Roy Sheehan now has a record of 4-0. So I just want to say that's phenomenal for a guy that went into a competition with a record of 1-0, and he's absolutely dominated everything there. So amazing stuff. Maybe Roy Sheehan will become quite a name. We'll have to wait and see. That's it for that one. Moving over now to Puerto Rico at the Coliseo Mario Morales. Juan Manuel Lopez returned to the ring. He's gone on way too long for me. He took on Jason Velez. Lopez was cut over the right eye. Velez knocked Lopez down in the 12th round, and the referee actually stopped the fight after Velez followed up when Juan Manuel Lopez got back up off the floor from being knocked down. Velez steamed in and the referee stopped it. So a TKO there in the 12th and final round for Jason Velez. His record now 26-4 with 1 draw, and Juan Manuel Lopez needs to hang the gloves up for me, but his record 35-6. Moving over now to the Emperor's Palace in Kempton Park, South Africa. 1 fight or 2 fights to mention on here, just 1 actually. This bill was on Box Nation. It was the 7 o'clock card. I think it actually came on at 5:30, my mistake. But anyway, Kevin Lerena, 19-1. He put his IBO World Cruiserweight title on the line against Dimitro Kucha, the guy that knocked out Enzo Maccarinelli and then lost to Marco Huck. It was a 12-round unanimous decision in favour of Kevin Lerena, so he successfully defends this IBO World Cruiserweight title. Lerena now 20-1. Dimitro Kucha 24-3 with 1 draw. Moving over now to the Brentwood Centre in Brentwood, Essex. A couple fights to mention on this one. Aaron Morgan, 12-1. His only loss came to Joe Pigford. That was a fantastic fight, by the way. But anyway, he returned to the ring against a guy called Victor Edaga, who was 0-26 with 1 draw. It was a points win over 4 rounds for Aaron Morgan. Also, Sonny Edwards, who was supposed to be fighting on the Friday night at York Hall, the show that I was at. That fight fell through, and he ended up fighting on this card, which was at MTK Global Show. He took on Patrick Bartos, who was 12-17. Bartos was down 4 times, and he was knocked out a TKO in the second round there for Sonny Edwards, so he's now 7-0. In fact, let me just quickly pause what I'm saying here 1 second and just go over to my WhatsApp conversation with Sonny Edwards. I spoke to him the other day, and I'm sure I mentioned this fighter to him. Let me just quickly have a look here. Patrick Bartos. Yeah, I mentioned him because he fought the week before and he got beat by Harvey Horn. And I know that a lot of people are actually comparing Harvey Horn with Sonny Edwards. Well, Sonny Edwards, I literally told him about him, and he actually said to me here, I'm going to see if I can get him. And I said, what, Patrick Bartos? And he said, yeah, I'm going to try and see if I can get him. I'd like to stop him as well. And he obviously got him. So I'm going to take a bit of credit for the matchmaking there. But yeah, getting the measuring stick out here, this guy, Patrick Bartos, that he fought, his record now 12-18, but of his losses, he lost, like I say, most recently there in the second round to Sonny Edwards. He went the distance with Harvey Horn over 4 rounds. He got knocked out in 1 round by Haroon Khan. He got knocked out in the second round by Jamie Conlon, and he went the distance over 4 rounds and lost against Prince Patel. So quite a decent job there for Sonny Edwards, who's only 7-0 now. So I quite like that win there. Also on this bill, a guy that I'm quite high on, but I want to see him stepped up a little bit, to be honest. Johnny Coyle, he's a traveller, but he's a very, very good fighter, like most travellers are, to be honest. He's now 18-0 with 1 draw. It was a points win over 6 rounds against Miguel Aguilar. Also on this bill, Larry Ekendale. I think it's his first fight since losing a very, very close one to Gary Corcoran. Of course, Gary Corcoran went on to fight Jeff Horn. But elsewhere, Larry Ekendale moved to 13 wins. He's got 1 loss. It was a points win over 6 rounds against Adam Grabich. That's it for Brentwood Centre. Moving over now to the SSE Hydro Arena. This one in Glasgow, Scotland, United Kingdom. Couple fights to mention before we get on to the main event. Lee McGregor moved to 3-0, a TKO in 2 rounds against Pablo Nevarez. Chantel Cameron successfully defended her IBO World Female Lightweight title against Miriam Delau. Chantel Cameron now 6-0. It was a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. Also on this bill, Jason Easton 11-0, lost his O and lost his chance really at the Commonwealth title because the Commonwealth Super Lightweight title was on the line. It was vacant. Glenn Foote was in the other corner. Very, very good fight Glenn Foote fought there. I think that Jason Easton, to his own admittance, really fought the wrong fight. He was down in the second round, but ultimately he was TKO'd in round 11. So Glenn Foote now 22-3. Really, really good win for him. And Jason Easton now 11-1. But the main event here, Josh Taylor 11-0 took on Winston Campos. Of course, it was supposed to be Humberto Soto. We got a bit of a late replacement here. And I tell you what, Josh Taylor went into that fight like a man on a mission. It was, of course, for the WBC Silver Super Lightweight title. Ayaz, what did you make of Josh Taylor's performance? A brilliant, brilliant win, I felt.
I think, like I said, Josh Taylor is a brilliant fighter, and I think what a win it was. I really wanted to see the Soto fight because I think that would have been a brilliant fight for him. But well done to Josh Taylor, and I think he'll become in the future, I think he's going to become a world champion.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. Josh Taylor, to me, is just a complete animal. 2 knockdowns came in that second round, and he just dominated the guy from the first bell. What I like about Josh Taylor is he throws a lot of feints, so he's very hard to read. He's got so much punch variety. He's got the speed, he's got the power, he's got the size, he's got the strength. He's got it all, you know. And the third round, after knocking Campos down, Campos got back up and didn't seem like he really wanted it too much at all. Victor Lachlan waved it off. It looked a little bit premature because Campos didn't really look hurt that much, but you know, he just didn't seem to fancy it, so it was what it was. A very, very good win there for Josh Taylor, a 3rd round TKO. He's now 12-0. After the fight, he actually called out Mikey Garcia, which I thought was quite interesting, and Shane and Barry McGuigan both saying he's very much ready for a world level fight now. Moving over now to the Sheffield Arena in Yorkshire, United Kingdom. A couple fights on the undercard just to fly through quickly. Rocky Fielding moved to 26-1. It was a points win over 8 rounds against Carol Horsjack. Atif Shafiq moved to 19-2. It was a TKO in round 5 against Lee Appleyard. Appleyard was down 3 times. So a really big win there for Atif Shafiq. Fantastic win for the Ingle Gym, and what a great night it was for the Ingle Gym, moving up the bill. Kid Galahad, another fighter out of the Ingle Gym, he got the knockout in round 3 against Irvin Berry. Irvin Berry, he went into the fight with a record of 23-7 with 2 draws, now 23-8 with 2 draws. Kid Galahad still undefeated now, 24-0. I just want to say on Kid Galahad, I mean, he really, really impressed me. I think that what we should do again is to get the measuring stick out. Huge punching Nicholas Walters, who everybody knows is the Axeman. He can really chop people down. He needed 6 rounds to get rid of Irvin Berry. Kid Galahad did it in 3, and it was an overhand left straight down the pipe. He hit the guy with the same shot a few seconds earlier, and it was like a 1-2 that got through at first that jolted the guy's head back, and then he hit him with another 1-2, exactly the same punch, but a little bit more ferociousness on it, a little bit more power, and that was the fight ender. And like I say, his opponent was he wasn't out cold, but he needed a serious amount of time and medical attention before he could get back up. He couldn't get back up straight away. His head landed on the bottom rope, as he fell down to the canvas. It was also Kid Galahad's birthday as well, so a fantastic win for him. I'm sure that that was like a cherry on a cake itself. And if there's one thing he would have wanted for his birthday, it would have been a world title shot. So I'm sure that Eddie Hearn can probably deliver that for him if those 2 guys end up linking up. But I think he's more than ready now, Kid Galahad, and he will fight anybody, I believe. Moving up the bill once again, Lemroy Thomas came over for the rematch with Dave Allen for the Commonwealth Heavyweight title. Lemroy Thomas 22-4, Dave Allen 12-3 with 1 draw. It was a technical draw at the end because Dave Allen had such a bad cut from an accidental head clash finish in the very first round. Very, very disappointing thing here for Dave Allen. Ayaz, obviously we know him well. He's been on this show many, many times. But, you know, the shape Dave Allen was in, he put in so much work. He's been, you know, so hungry for this fight. And it's such a shame that it's fell through when he was actually in the ring. I mean, when I say it's fell through, obviously the fight went ahead, but it had to be stopped in that manner. No one would have wanted that. And I'm not quite sure what's going to happen next. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, is Eddie Hearn going to put his hand in his pocket to get Lemroy over for a third time? And let's be honest, Dave Allen, you know, even though he's the slight favourite, it's no given that he's going to win this fight, you know? Is he going to end up paying Lemroy 3 times to come over? I'm not quite sure. I think he's definitely gone down the pecking order. You know, I don't think Dave Allen is a guy that Eddie Hearn sees as having any kind of, you know, world title aspirations on a realistic level. I don't think he's going to make it as far as to become a world champion at heavyweight, but I don't know what Eddie Hearn's going to do, because I know it means quite a personal thing for him. It's quite a personal kind of matter between him and Dave Allen. I know that Eddie Hearn's got a lot of time for him, but I just don't know if he's going to want to dig deep once again for Lemroy Thomas. And it's a shame if that does happen, because I'm hearing that Joe Joyce is trying to fight Lemroy Thomas, and I'm a little bit fearful that if that fight happens, then, you know, Dave Allen won't even get the Commonwealth title. You know what I mean? So I feel quite bad for Dave Allen. But yeah, if that happens, if Joe Joyce does fight Lemroy Thomas, he would win easy. And they're saying, I mean, I've heard some whispers that it may be on the Hay Bellew undercard. And if that was to happen, that would be a right shame, because I feel like Eddie Hearn would be kind of stabbing you know, Dave Allen in the back a little bit, putting it on that show. I think if it's going to happen, it's got to happen on one of Haymaker's shows himself. You know what I mean? I don't think Eddie Hearn should get involved in bringing him over to fight somebody else. That would be quite unfair. But, yeah, it is what it is. A real shame for Dave Allen there. Gamal Yafai on this bill as well. What a fight this was, by the way. It was probably the fight of the card here. Gamal Yafai 14-0 took on Gavin McDonnell 18-1 with 2 draws. It was for the WBC International Super Bantamweight title. It was a really high-risk, low-reward fight, I felt, for Gavin McDonnell. Yafai was obviously the up-and-coming, unbeaten prospect, and Gavin McDonnell only lost at world level, but the puncher was supposed to be Gamal Yafai. That probably was the case, but in the 12th round, Gavin McDonnell looked so close to stopping Gamal Yafai. I mean, he was so much better conditioned. I was so pleased for Gavin McDonnell as well, because it was like a bit of a make or break fight for him. I think his stocks will go up with that win there, and I think that, you know, he was a massive underdog in the bookies, and he upset the odds nicely. I think quite a few of his mates actually betted on him to win on points. You know, he's a great guy, Gavin McDonnell. Again, we had him on a few weeks ago. He really deserves this win here. But fitness played a massive part. He's such a fit guy. He really does, you know, he really does put the graft in the gym. I know that for sure. And the experience played a part as well, what I will say. But yeah, Gamal Yafai is a tough guy. He will come again stronger. He will learn from that, I'm sure. But it wasn't like he disgraced himself. He did fairly well also. But credit to both guys, because I think it was a very, very risky fight, more so for Gavin McDonnell. Because, you know, if he lost that fight, where would he go from there, really? But Kell Brook now in the main event, 36-2, taking on Sergey Rabchenko, 29-2. A knockout in 2 rounds for Kell Brook. It was for the vacant WBC Silver Super Welterweight title. I'm going to go over to you firstly, Ayaz. What did you make of Kell Brook's performance here?
Obviously, the first thing before this fight, I was worrying about Kell Brooks. I wanted to see how much of the eye will affect him. But let me say something. In this fight, he proved it, that he got rid of all the demons that was in his head. That because obviously when he fought the Errol Spence fight, he was worried about the eye. Now when he came to Rabchenko fight, he performed really, really good. You can see it. When he was fighting at 147, it was hard for him to make weight. And when he's moved up to 154, you can see he was boxing very, very good. His jab was brilliant. And in the second round, it's the uppercut when he knocked out Rabchenko. Now, that was a brilliant, brilliant knockout. Now, they're saying that he's coming back in the ring again in June. Now, they're saying he may fight Jermell Charlo next. Personally, I wouldn't take the Jermell Charlo fight. I think it's a bit too early because he's new to the weight. Rabchenko was just a step up. I think one more fight and then I reckon he should fight Charlo. I don't think he should go in there and fight Charlo. But well done to Kell Brook, and I think he's a great addition to the 154 division. But personally, I wouldn't take on Charlo in June.
Yeah, it was short and sweet from Kell Brook in many ways. I mean, he was only 3 weeks away from his last win being 2 years previous. So it had almost been 2 years since his last win. And that was against Kevin Bizier back in March 2016. But yeah, short right hook to the forehead/temple of Rabchenko was the fight finisher. I still want to see at least one more fight before he fights Charlo. I think I'm with you on that one, Ayaz. June might be a little bit too early for Kell Brook. I mean, I'd still like him to perhaps have the one fight before that, I think, just to kind of go in there with someone who's a bit more legit world level than Rabchenko. I've got nothing against Rabchenko, but, it is what it was. I think he was going to win that fight quite easy anyway. I know that they'd sparred many rounds before as well, so he certainly knew what he was going to get. Maybe we should ask that question actually to the listeners. If you're listening and you want to send in your suggestion, who should Kell Brook fight in the meantime while he's waiting for, Jermell Charlo? Perhaps a fight with Jermell Charlo could happen at some point later on in 2018, maybe the back end, maybe October time, something like that. Who should Kell Brook fight in the meantime? Who do you think would be a good test for him? But anyways, just before we move on from this bill, I just want to say also, I forgot to kind of mention that Dave Allen, when they stopped it from the head clash, it was a bit of a shame because I think at the time, I know that you can't really score a round until it's completed, but I think Lemroy was certainly winning the round. But, he hadn't really put a dent in Dave Allen, but I think he was working the jab quite well. He threw more, he landed more, but yeah, it was a shame because they didn't even let Dave Allen finish the round. There was only I don't know how many seconds, but a few seconds left in that first round, and it would have been good to see if the corner could have worked on it and perhaps, got the bleeding to stop. They had time to do that, but they didn't even give him a chance, so it was very, very disappointing there. And it's a huge blow to him. But yeah, that's it for the Sheffield Arena card. Moving out now stateside to the Barclays Center, Brooklyn, New York, USA. Couple fights to mention here. I'm going to start with the undercard. Gary Antoine Russell, that's the younger brother of Gary Russell, the world champion. He picked up a TKO in round 2 against a guy that was unbeaten called Keeson Freeman, who was 4-0. But yeah, Gary Antoine Russell is now 4-0 himself. What else was on this undercard? I think there was supposed to be a fight on here with Willie Monroe Jr., if I'm not mistaken. Let me just quickly try and see if that did actually take place, because I heard it was, then I heard it wasn't. I'm going to have to just quickly check that. Bear with me. Yes, he picked up a unanimous decision win over 8 rounds against Carlos Galvan. It was a shutout win for Willie Monroe Jr., so it's good to see him back to winning ways. Also on the bill, Sergey Derevianchenko moved to 12-0. He made his opponent retire on his stall after 6 rounds. His opponent was Deshaun Johnson, whose record is now 22-23. So it seemed like a bit of a one-way beating there for Sergey Derevianchenko. I'd like to see him stepped up, really, to be honest. Even though he's only had 12 fights now, he's a great fighter. I want to see him in with some of the big names already. Also on this bill, Jose Uzcategui. Now, this was a strange fight. He took on Andre Durrell in the rematch, of course, for the interim IBF World Super Middleweight title. This was bizarre. Obviously, it was a rematch, like I say. Thankfully, Andre Durrell's uncle was nowhere to be seen. But anyway, at the end of 8 rounds, Andre Durrell's corner, or Andre Durrell himself, I suppose you could say, retired on his stall. Now, this is what I saw in the fight. I mean, Durrell came out with quite a good jab in the first round, and I think that on the jabs, I probably gave him the first round. I think the second round, Uzcategui landed some good power punches, and that made him get the second on my card. But the third round, once again, not much in that third round until the last second of the round, where it looked like Durrell's knee almost touched down from a little combination from Uzcategui. I say a little one, obviously he hits quite hard, so I think he probably scraped the third just on the on the last couple of seconds there, Uzcategui. And Uzcategui, what was surprising me is he was slipping shots moving forward, which I think is a very rare talent in boxing. I've never seen him do that, and there's not many fighters that can do that. James DeGale, when he was in his prime, was one that could do that, slipping shots going forward. But everything from Durrell was, it seemed to be all like, pitter-patter kind of shots. Like, Uzcategui looked the much better fighter in there, the much more meaningful fighter in there. And the thing about Uzcategui, he's very unorthodox. And at the end of round 4, Durrell was shaking his head. And that was the first kind of inkling we got to where he was, starting to moan. He's become quite famous, unfortunately, for moaning all the time. And in the fifth round, I thought the fifth round was quite a close round. It was perhaps even a 10-10 round, but there was moments in that fifth for both fighters. I think Dirrell's jabs were quite good in the fifth. I think Uzcateguy's both hands really were landing, here and there, so it was quite a close round. But Uzcategui kept leaning forward, using his head movement to shift left and right to avoid a lot of punches. I think it was quite eye-catching work, really, even though it was defensive. Dirrell should have thrown uppercuts, I think, at that point, by the way, which he didn't. But the sixth round, again, for me, was a Dirrell round, and I thought the seventh round was a close round, even though most people thought that Uzcategui got it, judging by social media. And then, like I say, the eighth round, which was the final round, it was a close round. So the fight, in my eyes, was quite a close fight. And it was just a shame because he quit, and I don't quite understand why. I thought it was quite a close fight. I think that I don't know what my card was at the time, but there was like 1 or 2 points in it to Uzcategui with 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th to go. It certainly wasn't like a done deal, There was still time for Andre Dirrell to win the fight, but I don't know what's wrong with him. It's like a mental thing or something like that, but it was what it was, and he's almost becoming the Victor Ortiz of the super middleweight division, because it's not the first time where he just all of a sudden hasn't fancied it. So a bizarre finish there, but rightly so. I really am happy now that Uzcategui has kind of closed the book on that chapter there with Andre Dirrell. It seemed to be lots and lots of messing around, and the first fight ended very controversially. The second fight, there was no controversial stuff at all. It was very much a good win there for Uzcategui. He's made the guy quit. He's now 27-2, and Andre Dirrell, once again, I don't know where he goes from here. He's now 26-3. Back to the drawing board for him, perhaps even retirement, to be honest. And the main event here, Deontay Wilder 39-0 with 38 knockouts, took on Luis Ortiz 28-0 with 24 knockouts. The TKO came in round 10 for Deontay Wilder, very late and way later than most people thought. It was for the WBC World Heavyweight title. Ortiz was down once in the 5th round and twice in the 10th and final round here. Firstly, Ayaz, before I get into it, please take it away. What a great fight it was, by the way.
Oh, what a great fight it was. Well done to Deontay Wilder for winning the fight. Finally, he's fought a decent opponent, which is Luis Ortiz. What can I say? Well, Deontay Wilder, he's a good fight, he is. He did very good. Luis Ortiz did trouble him in the 7th round. The way Deontay Wilder fight, he swings a lot. He's one of those people that is like a one-out, one-punch knockout artist. And obviously in the 10th round, we saw him knock out Luis Ortiz. But if he doesn't fight Joshua, who does he fight next? That's what I really want to know. To be honest, a fight I want to see is him and Dillian Whyte. I think it would be a very good fight. I think he should fight Dillian Whyte next. And I think Joshua should fight Jarrell Miller should he beat Joseph Parker. And then the winner fights in the unification. But I'm not quite sure who Deontay Wilder is going to fight next. But I want to see that next.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Luis Ortiz, he was very measured from the very beginning. I think everything he did was very calculated. It was a very measured start from Ortiz. He definitely got the first round. Some people were scoring it a bit wildly, I thought. I mean, Wilder just seemed to be tapping Ortiz's gloves with his jab sometimes. It's like he wasn't even trying to connect with Ortiz's body or face or anything. And, he let the right hand go once, and I think it came close. I think this was like the first or second round. It came close because he just wasn't throwing the right in the early rounds. He let it go once. It came close, but it missed. And Ortiz seemed to be really, really making Wilder think in there, which, again, I don't know how deep his thinking really goes, because I don't think Wilder's got the best boxing brain. But yeah, Wilder's stance once again looks really weird with those big wide legs, and when I say wide, I'm not talking about how wide his actual legs are. I mean how wide they, how far apart they are when he stands off. And, he had the low guard as well. The second round I definitely gave to Ortiz. I think that Wilder just, he was being pushed on the back foot. And on the back foot, Wilder cannot fight on the back foot at all. He looks so bad when he tries to do it. He loses every round when he tries to do it. And it doesn't have to be Luis Ortiz against him. It can be Gerald Washington. It can be Artur Spilka. He cannot fight off the back foot. In the third round, barely anybody landed a punch, even a jab. Like, literally, nobody landed anything. But I had to give it to Ortiz once again. I mean, he was not doing much, to be honest, but no one really overcommitted, like the pair of them. I think it was quite a slow-paced fight as well at that stage, and that's when I was thinking to myself that Luis Ortiz is probably happy with the pace of the fight, because obviously he's the older guy. We're not quite sure how many years older he is, but he's the older guy on paper, and physically, you can see that with your own eyes. He's certainly the older guy. And as the fight would go on, you'd imagine he'd probably tire sooner than Wilder. So I think the pace of the fight, he probably could have done 15 rounds with the early pace of the fight, because it was really slow. It was kind of suiting Ortiz. And I think that after 4 rounds, I had Ortiz winning every single round. Again, some people don't agree with that. But yeah, Wilder's freakish power came out of nowhere. He seemed to catch Ortiz square on. Ortiz went down, of course, for a 10-8 round. I think at that stage, that was in the 5th round. So that meant on my card, it was 48-46 after 5 rounds in favour of Ortiz. I wasn't quite sure if the fight would go on for much longer after that, but perhaps Ortiz got saved by the bell as well. Because, you know what I mean, he was given a count and then the round ended and Deontay didn't even have time to run over there and throw anything. He was literally saved by the bell. But Ortiz has got a great poker face, and, he acts like he's not hurt and you just don't know. He's got a great poker face. In round 6, it was starting to really heat up. The pace got picked up for sure. Both men were landing good shots, but I felt that Wilder probably got the better shots off in that round. So again, he closed the gap. I think it was 57-56. I had it after 6 rounds in favour of Ortiz. And then round 7, I mean, Jesus Christ, there was even grounds to make it a 10-8 round. I know that Adam Smith on Sky Sports commentary certainly made a case for that. I mean, it was such a big round for Luis Ortiz, especially in the second half of the round. I mean, he caught Deontay Wilder with a short right hook counterpunch, and Wilder literally had nothing. The referee could have stopped it at a few different points. He was absolutely gone. Ortiz was swarming him, but the thing is, Ortiz was swarming him, but it was clever. He was applying clever pressure. He wasn't over-committing. He wasn't going wild. He was still putting the pressure on, but it was very, very clever, very, very composed stuff from Ortiz. And, I just couldn't believe that Wilder didn't go down. That's the only thing I will say. I actually give him credit for not going down, because he was in so much trouble. And I think the next round after that, Ortiz won that round. It was a couple of good shots that he landed that really kind of did it for me. And for me as well, I think that Wilder definitely shown us he's got quite a good chin, whereas he's been knocked for having a bad chin before, for all these old amateur fights and the sparring rumours that we hear. But he actually shown quite a good chin to us there. And like I say, if you gave Ortiz a 10-8 round, then that would mean, because he definitely did win the next round after that, 10-9, that would mean that the scores would be 77-73 in favour of Ortiz, providing you scored it like Adam Smith did or like I did. So effectively he was 4 points up with just 4 rounds to go. So it was, Wilder needed a knockout. Otherwise it would be a draw if he won every single round. Otherwise, if he lost one of the next 4 rounds, which he probably would have, then he'd have lost the fight. But I wasn't too sure about giving it a 10-8, because it was a good round, but I'm not massive on doing 10-8 rounds unless there's a knockdown or a point took off, obviously. But I think Wilder did unbelievably well to not go down, like I say. I think probably a 10-9, but yeah, 3 points would have been in it at that point, with 4 points to go, meaning 4 rounds to go, 3 points. I hope I'm not confusing no one, but yeah, there was 3 points in it at that point, and we were going into the 9th round, so there was 9, 10, 11 and 12. That's if you didn't give it a 10-8. I think Wilder probably just pinched the 9th round in the last 20 seconds as well, so again, that would put him 2 or 3 points behind Ortiz with 3 rounds to go. And then of course, in that 10th round, he really needed to win these rounds, and he certainly won that round. I mean, that was the end of it, 2 knockdowns in the 10th. And once again, we've seen Wilder's punching power just get him through these fights again. I mean, Ortiz was absolutely gone. I really can't believe he got up from the first knockdown and he just didn't have anything left. I mean, he really emptied the gasket. Even though I say he was applying smart pressure when he had Wilder in trouble, he did go for it. He did put his foot on the gas, and it was late in the fight as well. You know what I mean? So, yeah, he didn't have too much left, especially as the rounds progressed. And he was just completely exhausted. He had nothing left in him, and we really don't know how old he is. But yeah, Wilder, he's just incredibly fit, and he's got the power. So he's very dangerous for that reason. But sometimes I do kind of think that he makes a bit of a mockery of the sport because he's just technically terrible. We've seen him getting beat by Szpilka. We've seen him getting schooled by Gerald Washington. And these guys, you wouldn't say are world-level guys. So, once again, against Luis Ortiz here, Luis Ortiz was getting to him. It's certainly on my card, Luis Ortiz was handily leading. But, of course, on the judges' cards, all three judges had Wilder up by a round at the point of the stoppage. Ayaz, I don't know if you scored the fight, but that is absolutely shocking to know that. I mean, how could anyone have had Wilder up by 1 round at that point? It wasn't even close, in my opinion. Especially not to give it to Wilder. I mean, Ayaz, did you know that, or am I telling you that for the first time? That was crazy.
No, you're actually telling me that for the first time. But wow, I can see. I did. A lot of people did have Ortiz up, but then again, in most fights have been that against Wilder. But then Wilder gets the knockout.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like I say, he was definitely leading Ortiz, and I know that Johnny Nelson made quite a deal of it, but when we found out that at the time of the stoppage, Wilder was leading by 1 point, I mean, that was shocking. That was really, really bad. I couldn't believe it. That was criminal judging there. So it seems like he was going to get robbed on the cards anyway, poor Ortiz, so I'm gutted for him. But, yeah, it's a real shame because, like I say, he's waited such a long time to get the shot and then that happens. But, yeah, look, there's no complaints with how Wilder won. He's got the power, and at the end of the day, it's a 12-round fight, not a 6-round fight or a 3-round fight. Otherwise, Ortiz would have absolutely walked it. But, he just gets lucky, doesn't he? He's the luckiest man in boxing. He's just got that fight finishing power. One shot is all it takes, and that's it. And he always seems to find it. So, yeah, if he fights anybody, and I'm talking about, like, who would you put him in there with, Ayaz, who you'd say would outbox him? I'm not saying they would beat him, but they'd comfortably be outboxing him until he lands that shot, or, would probably beat him if he didn't land that shot. Joshua, 100% I'd favour over Wilder massively after that. Because when I saw that, he looked so bad. Once again, every time he fights, I see how bad he really is.
2 people I reckon I'll box him up. Tyson Fury and Dillian.
Oh. Yeah, but Joshua's in there as well, yeah?
Yes, I'll put Joshua. But I think for me, it has to be Dillian White and Tyson Fury.
I mean, there's even arguments, and honestly, I don't know. I don't want to go overboard here, but I even think that, I'd like to see him and Dominic Breazeale. I think that would be quite a good fight because Breazeale can certainly take a big beating. We saw that against Joshua. I think that would be a good fight. I think Breazeale would be outboxing him, and also I'd even like to see him take on someone like Pulev. I think Pulev would really be troubling him with the jab and stuff like that. So. Damn, I mean, he's got to be careful who he fights. He needs to keep hold of that belt, to get the big money fight with Joshua, because literally every single fight I've seen him in, and I'm looking at his last few fights, Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz, Bermane-Stiverne, that was terrible, Bermane-Stiverne, I'm going to leave that one out, but, Gerald Washington, Artur Szpilka, these guys, those 3 that I mentioned there, they were comfortably beating him at the point of the knockout, you know what I mean? So, let's be honest, Artur Szpilka, what would Joshua do to him? Gerald Washington, what would Joshua do to him? Luis Ortiz, fair enough, he's a danger man, but this is crazy, man. I mean, oh boy, there's so much wrong with Deontay Wilder. He's just literally an accident waiting to happen. He's 40-0 now. It's unbelievable with 39 knockouts. But yeah, he certainly should be getting more credit from the, from the like American fans and stuff like that, because he's got everything, hasn't he? He's got the good looks, he's got all the tattoos, he's got a chiseled body, he's got that power, he's got the he's got great marketability. He's got a great persona. He's got a great attitude. The way he is, he's kind of flashy. He's funny. He's started to do these rhymes now as well. You know what I mean? He's very colourful, very charismatic. So yeah, I'd like to see him really get some more credit from some of the other sports fans and stuff like that. But that's it for the Brooklyn card. Moving over now to another part of New York. We're going to mention the Madison Square Garden card in the theatre. That's the theatre in Madison Square Garden. Few fights to mention over here. Firstly, heavyweight prospect Cassius Chaney moved to 12-0. It was a KO in round 2 against Tim Washington, who was 6-5 going in. Also on this bill, the brother of Devon Alexander, Vaughan Alexander, he moved to 12-0, a unanimous decision against Devon Lee over 10 rounds. He's now 12-0. Also on this build, Dimitri Bivol 12-0 took on Sullivan Barrera 21-1. It was a TKO in the 12th and final round for Dimitri Bivol. He now becomes the second man to beat Sullivan Barrera, and he also does something that the great Andre Ward couldn't do. He got the stoppage, and of course he defended successfully his WBA World Light Heavyweight title. Now this fight here, I felt that the first round, it was very cagey, very cautious work from both men. I think that Bivol landed a really good combination at the end of the first round, and the second round Bivol was cut by his right eye. It was unclear to really see on the replay. I think that they were saying it was a head clash. I wasn't too sure, but the second round, certainly Bivol really won that round. It wasn't massive, but he certainly landed the better shots. It was a really good round though, and you know, the cut seemed to kind of wake Bivol up a little bit. Since the cut happened, he was really focused. I think that Barrera showed a great defense. I'm talking American now. He showed a great defense for like the first time in a few of his recent fights. Like I say, he'd been down quite a few times, hadn't he? But yeah, Bivol was struggling to get through Barrera's guard in the early part of the fight. Even though he was winning the rounds, he was struggling to break him up properly, which was quite surprising. I think he picks his shots really well, Bivol, so that's what was quite surprising, that he couldn't really get through with some of the big ones. The third round, Bivol won that round. In the fourth round, Bivol landed a great left hook that had Sullivan Barrera in trouble for a few seconds while Bivol was letting his hands go. In the fifth round, Bivol went looking for Barrera in that round. Really hard punches and quick punches. But again, none of those rounds so far were like huge rounds. Even though he was winning everything, they were still quite competitive. I don't want to be too harsh on Sullivan Barrera. They were all relatively close, but you definitely have to edge it to Bivol. There wasn't too much variety from Bivol, I felt. I think that some people are kind of overhyping this win. I think that everything he throws, most of the time anyways, to the head. Like pretty much all of his shots were straight shots as well, like in the first half of the fight. The seventh round, quite a big round for Bivol. I think he demonstrated some great in and out boxing, landing his shots and stepping out of range, then jumping back into range, landing a few more. All of that while avoiding Barrera's punches as well. He showed some great footwork, Bivol, which I haven't really seen much of from him before. I think that Barrera didn't really have much success to the head at all the whole night. Literally got through with like a few shots here and there, but he was mainly getting through to the body of Bivol a few times, but nothing really troubled Bivol. I think that Barrera was simply second best really to everything. But yeah, both men had only gone 12 rounds once before. Barrera seemed to tire a little bit over the stretch. You can't really blame him. I think in the later rounds, Bivol developed a big bulge near his temple. It was quite a grotesque kind of swelling there, but thankfully for him, it came in the late part of the fight. Very, very calm corner work from Bivol's team as well. I noticed they were very, very calm, and Bivol himself was remaining calm in between rounds. But yeah, the stoppage came in the 12th round for Bivol. It was a 1-2 combination. Barrera barely beat the count, but Harvey Dock waved it off because Barrera was extremely unsteady on his feet. But yeah, I feel bad for Barrera because it's the fourth time he's been dropped in his last 5 fights, and it was looking like he would survive the distance without being dropped. And Bivol was supposed to be this, this huge puncher, but unfortunately, like I said last week, Bivol probably, if he was going to knock Barrera down, he'd probably have enough power to keep him on the ground, which he certainly did here. Well, even though, Barrera got up kind of thing, he couldn't carry on, so you get my point. But yeah, dominant performance by Bivol. Looking at it after the whole fight, I mean, he's certainly the real deal. Barrera's going to keep coming, I'm sure, because he's a tough contender no matter what. But yeah, I think Bivol showed he's the real deal. He put on a bit of a clinic. When I say that he wasn't getting through with some of his early stuff, and he came on really strong in the later part of the fight, at no point was Barrera able to land clean stuff on Bivol as well. So when I say, he did put on quite a clinic, it wasn't just offensively, but also defensively as well. He really showed a lot. So I'm really, really impressed with Bivol. But yeah, the main event now, Sergey Kovalev 31-2 with 1 draw, took on Igor Mikhalkin 21-1. Both men, of course, Russian fighters. This one was for the Eurasian Boxing Parliament light heavyweight title, which I haven't seen before, and also the WBO World Light Heavyweight title. To be honest, I mean, I didn't really realise until the fight actually was happening that Mikhalkin was a southpaw. I didn't know too much about him, but the last time Kovalev fought a southpaw was back in 2014 when he took on Blake Caparello from Australia, and Kovalev won the fight in 2 rounds, but he got put down himself in the first round. But yeah, Kovalev, he threw every shot with intent very early. Like every shot he threw, it was with huge intent, lots and lots of power behind every shot. He didn't really respect McCorkin's power, and he basically walked through him. I think he got a little bit too eager in the third. He took a few decent shots himself, including overhand right from McCorkin. But McCorkin was a tough cookie, definitely. Showed his toughness, but he didn't really have the power. And McCorkin was happy to stand and trade with Kovalev, which I thought was quite surprising also. He's got a lot of balls. But yeah, Kovalev left himself open quite a lot. In the end, he took quite a lot of shots, like I say, but nothing really bothered him. You'd have to wonder if McCorkin was a much bigger puncher than what he was, what would have happened. But then again, on the same stroke, if you like, Kovalev probably wouldn't have been as open if he was fighting somebody else with a bigger punch, like perhaps Adonis Stevenson, somebody like that. But yeah, there was a bad cut on McCorkin's nose, and just under his right eye there was a bad cut as well. I think both cuts were caused literally like simultaneously, like one after the other in about 2 seconds. I think the main damaging shot was a huge left hook from Kovalev in that 6th round. But yeah, in the 7th round, Kovalev continued to beat McCorkin up, and with about 30 seconds to go in the 7th round, referee Steve Willis decided to stop the fight because of the uncontrollable bleeding from McCorkin's eye. But yeah, very fast-paced fight, I felt. Not really super impressed with Kovalev, though. I think I was expecting him to get his man out of there earlier than the 7th round, and also I had a bet going on as well that he'd get him out before 6 rounds, and I was going to earn quite big, but he actually got him out after 7, so I was a little bit annoyed with Kovalev. But yeah, that's it for the reviewing. Sorry that it's dragged on so much. It's now time, just before we wrap up part 1, to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated WBO Featherweight Champion of the world, Mr. Oscar Valdez. Oscar, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, it's always my pleasure, my friend. So, Oscar, we last spoke back in November. A few weeks before that, you had defended your title, but at the time when we spoke, we weren't too sure what was going to be happening next for you. I did ask you about your opinion on the British featherweights, and you said that if you could choose out of all of the British guys, you'd like to fight Lee Selby most because he's got a title, and maybe after Lee Selby, you'd perhaps take on Carl Frampton. However, it's none of those two. It's going to be Scott Quigg. So tell us, Oscar, how and when did this fight come around? And obviously, it's a voluntary defense, this one, right?
Well, I got the news at the beginning of this year. It was great news because he's a tough fighter. He has a great name. He has a lot of fans behind him, and just pretty much a great fighter. So I know it's going to be a tough fight, but we'll be more than prepared to put up a good show this March 10th.
And of course, the fight will take place at the StubHub Center in Carson, California. Oscar, what do you know about Scott Quigg? A man that obviously, he left the UK, he moved his home to the United States to train under Freddie Roach out of the Wildcard Boxing Gym. Obviously, myself and most of our listeners on this show, we know Scott Quigg very well, as you'd imagine, and his record currently stands at 34-1 with 2 draws, that 1 loss, a decision loss to Carl Frampton.
Yeah, I know him very well. I've seen him fight before. And also, I've got the chance to spar him already. Went to Freddie Roach's gym and we sparred. And that's one of the reasons why I know he's a tough fighter. We went in there and he went toe-to-toe. And got nothing to say but good words to Scott Quigg. He's a tough fighter. Hits hard. He has good footwork. And just overall, just a complete fighter. I'm not taking this fight nothing lightly. Training extra hard because I know he's a tough fighter. So I think this is a fight that the fans are going to like because of Scott Quigg's and my style. This is going to be a perfect fight to put up a good show.
Now, I'm not going to ask you how the sparring went. That would be a little bit disrespectful. I'm not going to say if you got the better of it or whatever. But going on the sparring and the competitiveness of the sparring, are you saying that if the fight is something like the sparring, that all the fans are in for a great fight?
Oh, yeah, definitely. If it's something what we did on the sparring, we went toe-to-toe, I'm pretty sure the fans are going to like it because that's what the fans like to see. They like to see a good fight. They don't like to see a style is just pretty much just running. Scott Quigg, he proved he's a warrior inside the ring. I've seen him fight before. And like I said, his style and my style is going to be a perfect style for the fans to watch. So tune in and expect to see fireworks that night.
And was this the fight that you wanted most, or were there other people unavailable? Because I know that right now all the other champions at featherweight have all got fights scheduled in the coming weeks or months. So was this the fight that you wanted, or was it really because all the other guys were busy? Because I know you want a unification fight as soon as possible.
No, to be honest, I mean, I wouldn't deny no fights. You know, if I got the chance to fight Scott Quigg, or if it was Lee Selby or Frampton, either one of those guys, I'm more than happy to take the fights. And just getting the news that it's one of them, which is Scott Quigg, I got excited. So it's not going to be an easy fight. I know that. So these are the big names we've been looking for, and you know, I got a tough fight in front of me. So, you know, taking this fight very seriously, and just take it fight by fight, day by day.
And I remember last time we spoke, you told me that you wanted to be fighting 3 times a year. Obviously, this fight's happening here March the 10th, Saturday. Providing all goes well for you in this fight against Scott Quigg, is March early enough for you to still be on course to have 3 fights in 2018?
Oh, definitely. I mean, like I said, I like to stay active. Obviously, I always visualize myself coming out victorious. That's always my mind. I'm gonna win that night, and you know, and just try to keep on advancing. That's my mentality. You know, I've always had it, and you know, I'm sticking to it. You know, if everything goes well, we'll see. We'll see when is my next fight. But hopefully, we can get 3 more. We can get 3 fights this year, and just keep on improving. I mean, like I said, my dream is to become one of the best fighters in the world, considered as one of the best international wise. And for that to happen, I got to fight the best. And right now, the best is considered Scott Quigg. So let's get it on with Scott Quigg. And after that, we'll just keep on advancing. But like I said, I'm taking it day by day, fight by fight, and just being smart in there.
And I want to get your opinion on a couple of other fights that are happening in your division. It's been announced that Carl Frampton will take on Nonito Donaire in April. Have you got any kind of opinion on that one? Who you think will win that fight?
Well, I think it's gonna be a good fight. You know, a lot of people might give Donaire, they might underestimate Donaire because they might say he's old and he's finished in the sport of boxing, which I think the contrary. You know, I think Donaire is still a tough fighter. He has a veteran in there. He's fast. He got that power in him. So I wouldn't be surprised if Donaire wins. But on the other hand, if you got Frampton, a tough fighter, strong, he could also box. So you know, that fight is a pretty even fight. You know, I wouldn't put all my money on Frampton because I think Donaire still has a lot in him. So it's an even fight.
Yeah, definitely. And also, Leo Santa Cruz versus Abner Mares, the rematch, obviously, a big Mexican fight there. Who wins that one? It's going to be happening in June.
Yeah, I think also going to be a good fight because both of them styles was a fan-pleasing style. You know, they both went at it last fight. I don't know. That's a tough one to take because I think Abner Mares did the wrong fight when he fought Leo Santa Cruz. Maybe if he changed up his style a little bit, tries to box more, maybe he has a chance to beat Santa Cruz this time. You know, it could turn out to be a trilogy for them. So you know, just wishing both of the best. You know, let the best man win.
And coming down to the last couple of questions now, Oscar, when we last spoke, when I posted the interview online, some people were saying to me, how did you not ask Oscar about his crazy pets? I heard that you had a pet alligator. Is this true?
This is true. Yes.
What? I don't know where to start. How? Why? What?
Well, it all started when I was a kid. And, you know, I turned on the TV and you would have the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin. So I've always, ever since I was a kid, I've had a passion for animals. One particular, a crocodile, an alligator. And never did I thought when I was a kid I would actually have the chance to own one. But yeah, you know, growing up, I got the chance, you know, walking in the streets of Mexico, and found a spot where they actually sold one. It was the size of a lizard at the time in 2008, and that's where it all started. Bought it from right there, and now it's started. It would fit in the palm of my hand. Now it's bigger than me if I lay down.
Wow. So you've still got the alligator then, yeah?
Oh yes, definitely.
What does he eat, Oscar? Is it a he? Is it
a she? At first he started eating little fishes. Then years later, he started eating little rats. Then from rats, he went from hamsters. Then from hamsters, it's away from chicken. So now we feed him chicken. And to be honest, now he pretty much eats on his own because I have him in my ranch back in Mexico. And it's a little pond. So apparently a lot of birds don't see him when he's at the pond. The birds go down and drink water. And he just feeds off them. So it's the animal that's very cheap to have because he eats on his own.
Wow, that is incredible. What's his name, by the way?
The name is Steve because of I admired a lot. It was my one of my idols growing up was Steve Irwin. So Steve Irwin had just passed away at the time, and I named him after him, Steve Irwin.
Excellent. Well, shout out to Steve the Crocodile from me. And finally, just before I let you go, Oscar, I just want to ask you your prediction for this fight against Scott Quigg Saturday. You don't have to give us one if you don't want to, but how do you see your arm being raised?
I always, it doesn't matter if it's a knockout, it doesn't matter if it's a decision. I visualize myself with my hands up, coming victorious. But one thing for sure, I've always said this, and I will never promise anybody a knockout. What I will promise everybody is to give my best effort inside the ring and try to put up a good fight. So everybody can expect fireworks that night, March 10th.
Absolutely. I always expect fireworks from you, my friend. But listen, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for your time. Best of luck for Saturday, and we'll catch up again soon.
No problem, man. Anytime.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, as always, the news part. Ayaz, please bring us in the latest news, my friend.
Josh Kelly will fight Carlos Molina on the undercard of Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker.
Yeah, of course, at the end of the month, March 31st in Cardiff, former world champion at 154, Carlos Molina. A man that, if I'm not mistaken, I think he prefers to fight at 147. I don't think he was ever really like a big 154 fighter. I think he didn't really like fighting there, but he did actually end up winning a world title. Of course, he's got a bit of a story behind him as well. I think he got deported back to Mexico, after living in the US for literally all his life, or basically all his life. But yeah, we had him on the show quite a while back, and funny enough, now he's taking on Josh Kelly. I will say now, I'm going to let the listeners know that I've reached out to Carlos Molina about coming on the show at the same time as Josh Kelly, so I'd like to get them both on in some kind of like virtual face-to-face head-to-head kind of thing, because obviously Sky aren't going to do it because the fight's not that big, but yeah, I'm going to try to get them both on. Carlos Molina's the only guy that's got back to me thus far. He said he's up for that, so I've got to let him know when, and hopefully Josh Kelly is up for that as well. But yeah, it's going to be at 147, which I think Molina will probably like, and from what he said to me, he's very much up for that fight. But it's going to be a huge test for Josh Kelly in, just a handful of fights. So yeah, I admire the step up. It's turning out to be a great bill, that one.
Jamie McDonnell will defend his WBO World Bantamweight title against Naoya Inoue on May 25th in Japan.
Yeah, Inoue's coming up in weight, obviously. I mean, he's ranked, if I'm not mistaken, in a lot of people's pound-for-pound lists. I think he may even be in the Ring's pound-for-pound list. So he's certainly, a bit of a killer. He's also a big puncher. I mean, he's obviously coming up in weight, and Jamie's a huge bantamweight. But the stories are that Jamie really struggles to make that weight. So I don't know if this is like a big money fight that he's just going to try and take, like a little bit of a cash-out style kind of fight. But yeah, he's a massive underdog. But I tell you what, I was speaking to someone yesterday about this fight, and they said to me, I would never write Jamie McDonnell off in any fight, and I second that, to be honest. I mean, he's proven a lot of people wrong many, many times. I think Jamie McDonnell's a very underrated boxer, like I've said many, many times, so we're certainly behind him, and we hope he can go out there to Japan and do the business.
Tony Yoka has been suspended for anti-doping violation.
Yeah, there's been some reports out of France that he's apparently missed 3 drug tests. I think they've tried to test him, and for whatever reason he's not took these tests. So because of that, they've decided to give him a 1-year ban now. So it's a real shame because if he has been doping, then it's obviously really bad, because he just won a gold medal in 2016 in the Olympics in Rio. So a very controversial one, by the way, over our man Joe Joyce. So they were talking about perhaps having a rematch in the pros. Well, yeah, he's going to be out for a year here, so it's a real halt, if you like. It's thrown a bit of a spanner in the works of his progression into the pro ranks. But listen, if he's been doping, then he deserves it, doesn't he? So Yeah, I'd like to see some more clarification on that situation, but it doesn't really look good for Tony Yoka, to be honest.
Saul Canelo Alvarez has returned a positive sample for trace level of clenbuterol.
Yeah, clenbuterol, that's the stuff that Lucas Brown had traces of in his system. We know what happened with Lucas Brown. You know, he was stripped of the of the heavyweight world title, but yeah, I mean, Canelo said that it was some contaminated meat, which we've heard many, many times now from some Mexican fighters. It seems like that's an excuse that gets them out of it. You know, it's wrong. There's no real way, I suppose, of telling, you know, how this stuff entered his system, whether he really did eat some contaminated meat or not. We're never going to probably know, and it's such a shame because he's one of the biggest names in boxing, and it's kind of crazy that the fight's still going ahead with Gennady Golovkin. I don't quite know how long this stuff is going to remain in his system for, or how long it's been in his system, or whatever it is, but, you know, surely that stuff should not be in his system come fight night on May 5th, because that would be, you know, really, really unfair. But, you know, he's just up for having the fight. He probably doesn't even care. He's a true fighter, unlike many guys. You know, they'd probably pull out of this fight, and he's probably a bit crazy, to be honest, not to. But yeah, I'd like to see the situation cleaned up, because Canelo's a great fighter, but you know, this is very, very stupid if he's done this on purpose.
Kazakhstan Olympic gold medalist Dania Yelesanova has signed with Matchroom Boxing.
Yeah, there was a press conference, I believe, in Kazakhstan at something crazy like 5 in the morning UK time a couple of days back. So yeah, he's the guy that won the gold medal in Rio in the welterweight division, if I'm not mistaken. He's just turned pro now, so he's going to be, you know, fighting on Eddie Hearn's shows. Obviously, being from Kazakhstan, there's probably not too much money going around, I'd imagine, unless you know, hooked up with some kind of Russian promoter. But obviously, Eddie Hearn's doing some great things, especially in Europe. He's certainly the number one promoter, you'd have to say, in Europe. So the guy's probably made a right move going with him, and it'd be interesting what Eddie Hearn does, because he's very good at building brands, and, you know, this guy's obviously not a household name or anything like that, and he probably doesn't speak English, so it'd be interesting to see what he does with him. But yeah, he's a guy that beat Josh Taylor in the amateurs, and he also was the guy that you know, that knocked Josh Kelly out of the Olympics in the first round. He didn't knock him out in the fight. I think the fight it went the distance. It went 3 rounds, but he was the guy that, you know, got Josh Kelly knocked out of the Olympics in the first fight. So yeah, I think it was the first fight. It might have been the second fight. So yeah, this guy is certainly the real deal. I think he dominated Josh Kelly. So yeah, very, very good signing for Eddie Hearn.
Adrian Broner versus Omar Figueroa has been collapsed, and therefore Broner will fight Jesse Vargas.
Yeah, that fight is set to happen. I think it's on April 21st, if I'm not mistaken. So I feel really bad for Omar Figueroa. We had him on the show. I think it was a couple weeks ago now, and obviously he's had to pull out with an injury, and he was very confident. He said to me he was going to stop Adrian Broner within 6 rounds, and he's absolutely devastated with this injury. He's been plagued with injuries before, Omar Figueroa, but this is a seriously big fight, or this would have been a seriously big fight for him, and it was one that he had to pull out of due to the seriousness of the injury. So hopefully, he was saying that hopefully he doesn't need to undergo any surgery for it. I think he's had a few tests and stuff like that, so hopefully it's going to heal without needing any surgery. But yeah, the replacement opponent is Jesse Vargas, the former WBO welterweight champion, the man that lost to Manny Pacquiao, and I think he's also the only man to have defeated Saddam Ali. So yeah, he's quite a good fighter, Jesse Vargas. It's a good replacement, but I think that Adrian Broner probably has an easier time with Vargas than he would have with Omar Figueroa for me. So yeah, it's a good replacement, but yeah, it's still going to be a decent fight, I suppose.
Bradley Skeet's fight has been pushed back to April.
Yeah, Bradley Skeet against Kerman Lejaraga from Spain. That fight, I think we may have even said this the other week, but if we didn't, yeah, I think it's been pushed back to April the 28th, so it's about 4 weeks and maybe 5 weeks. I think it's 5 weeks that it's been pushed back, actually, yeah. So it's not too bad, I suppose, but he's had some rotten luck, Bradley Skeet, with all the pullouts and people not wanting to fight him and all this stuff. It's been quite frustrating, so I hope he can keep his head on the game, if you like, and stay focused, so to speak, and I'm sure he will. He's a real good professional, and yeah, do the business in Spain and come back with a European title. So yeah, he's it's a bit annoying for him, but I'm sure it's not going to bother him too much. He's been through this thing time and time again before.
And finally, Scott Quigg will fight Louis Ritson on the undercard of Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker.
Yes, Louis Ritson, of course, fought, I think it wasn't last weekend, just gone. It was a weekend before. He got a knockout in the first round against Joe Murray in his first defence of his British lightweight title. And he's going to be taking on Scott Cardle, the former holder of the belt, in his second defence. And I tell you what, if Louis Ritson can beat Scotty Cardle in good fashion, then that is a huge, huge statement. But yeah, Scotty Cardle really, really wants this fight. He's certainly very, very up for it. And it's going to be a great fight. This guy, Louis Ritson, from the Northwest, he's a great, great talent. Like I say, he's not a flash kid. He puts the graft in the gym. And he's a true hard-working guy. He's a young guy as well. So, if he gets a second defence here, successful one, then he's just got to have that one more fight. I think Eddie Hearn just wants to kind of push him through these defences as quick as possible so he can move on, because he is really, really good. I'm really, really liking the look of Louis Ritson. So, yeah, another great fight for that bill, along with the one that we mentioned earlier, Josh Kelly and Carlos Molina. It's going to be, hopefully everybody feels that they're getting the bang for their buck, if you like, as they say. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that bill as a whole. Is that it for the news, Ayaz, yeah?
Yes, that's it for the news.
Okay, thank you, Ayaz. Right, moving over now to the previewing. Going to try to go through this as quick as possible. Moving over to the Grand Casino in Hinckley, Minnesota, USA. One fight to mention over here. Returning to the ring, I think he may have had one fight since losing to Jürgen Bremer, but it was the guy that was, part of the super middleweight World Boxing Super Series tournament, the only entrant from the United States, Rob Brandt. He's in here against a guy called Colby Coulter, who's 12-11, but Rob Brandt's 22-1. You'd imagine that should be quite an easy win there for Rob Brandt. That's an 8-rounder there. Moving over now to the Parks Casino in Pennsylvania, USA. One fight to mention over here. John Joe Nevin. He looks to move to 10-0. It's an 8-rounder against Alex Torres, who is 6-0. So somebody's O's got to go there. That's an 8-rounder. Moving over now to the Deadwood Mountain Grand in South Dakota, USA. Again, a really strange place to have this fight. Regis Prograis, 20-0, takes on Julius Indongo, 22-1, former world champion. This one's for the interim WBC World Super Lightweight title. This card, by the way, has been picked up by Box Nation. It's going to be happening tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to that. Early hours of the morning. Yeah, Regis Prograis, 20-0 with 17 knockouts. Julius Indongo in his first fight back since being stopped by Terence Crawford. It's a real shame for Regis Prograis. I mean, we had him on the show a few weeks ago. He was supposed to take on Victor Postel, which would have been a really hard fight, and it was one he was certainly, very much up for. And all of a sudden, Victor Postel pulls out the fight, and then they draft in a southpaw, that can punch, that's been a world champion, that's no disgrace. I mean, he's only lost the one fight to Terence Crawford. This guy is a really, really good fighter, Julius Indongo. So it's a heavy replacement, and I've spoke to Regis Prograis. He tells me he believes this is a harder fight than the Postel fight, but he's still up for it. So, I give him lots and lots of credit for going through with that fight, but that's a really hard fight there. We did the prediction league on this also, while I remember. So yeah, I want to throw it down to you. Regis Prograis against Julius Indongo. How do you see that fight? So far on Twitter, our listeners have gone with Prograis to win by knockout.
I'm going for Julius Indongo on points.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with Prograis to win by knockout as well. I think it could be quite late, but yeah, I'm going with the listeners on that. Yeah, that's it for that one. Moving over now to the Stur Arena in Denmark. One fight to mention over here. Dennis Chelan, he gets in the ring again. I think he hasn't fought since losing to Josh Warrington. His record 18-1 with 2 draws. He takes on Jesus Sanchez, who's 8-1. We're really scraping the barrel here, but moving over to Germany. One fight on here that really gets my interest. Tavel Pulev. This is the brother of Kubrat Pulev. He's a cruiserweight. He's 8-0 with 8 knockouts. He's in an 8-rounder against Valery Brudov, former opponent of Tony Bellew, a real puncher as well, Valery Brudov. I remember he had Bellew in some trouble, but he broke his foot in that fight as well. His record 44-13. He's really been round the block. What a fight that is, by the way. All the very best to both men there. What a fight. And moving over now to another part of Germany. One fight to mention over here. Kevin Johnson, the colourful heavyweight, 32-8 with one draw. He actually lives in Germany now, believe it or not. He fights for the IBO International Heavyweight title against a guy called Peter Millas, who's actually 10-0. He might be quite a good fighter. I'm not quite sure of that, but he's obviously, being 10-0, he's got 8 knockouts. He's 22 years old, which is quite unbelievable. But yeah, he's either going to be a really good fighter, and it's a great win for him if he does it, or he's not going to be any good and he's just a bit of a padded record for Kevin Johnson. Either way, all the very best to both men. Moving over now to another part of Germany, one fight to mention over here, another fight that's really gone under the radar. Jack Kulkai, 22-3, former world champion. He takes on our very own Craig Cunningham, 19-2. It's an 8-rounder there. What a great fight that one is. I mean, if Craig Cunningham can do the job, that'd be amazing, but it's a really, really hard ask for him, you'd have to say. Craig Cunningham, obviously the guy that beat Anthony Ogogo that night. Moving over now to the StubHub Center in Carson, California. This one's going to be on ESPN. I think also Sky Sports will be showing this bill as well. Couple fights to mention over here. Andy Ruiz Jr., 29-1. He's in an 8-rounder against Devin Vargas, 20-4. Andy Ruiz Jr., really a bit of an unlucky man. When he went over to New Zealand and fought Joseph Parker, he was quite unlucky in many people's eyes. He didn't get the verdict that night for the world title. Also on this bill, Mike Reed, 23-1. He's coming back. This is his first fight after losing to Ramirez, to Jose Ramirez. So this is a humongous fight back for him. 23-1. He's in a 10-rounder against Arnold Barboza Jr., who's 17-0 as well. So really throwing himself in the deep end there in his fight back after losing by knockout. So really take my hat off to him. Also on this bill, Andy Vences, who's 20-0, takes on Eric De Leon, who's 17-0. That's a great fight there. This one's for the WBC Continental Americas Super Featherweight title, also the vacant WBO International Super Featherweight title. And the main event here, the man that we spoke to earlier on in the show, Oscar Valdez, 23-0, puts his WBO World Featherweight title on the line against Scott Quigg, 34-1 with 2 draws. Scott Quigg, Ayaz, a man that has shared the ring in sparring with Oscar Valdez before. Oscar Valdez tells us that their styles match up really well and that they went toe-to-toe when they were sparring. But Scott Quigg's a tough guy. I mean, obviously, some people like to kind of get at him for losing to Carl Frampton because there was so much hate in the build-up in that fight. But really and truly, he fought most of the fight with a broken jaw, and he really came on strong in the second part of the fight. And Carl Frampton wasn't able to really, put him in any kind of trouble to where he was going to possibly get stopped. I think Scott Quigg's got some massive cojones, and I think it's a great fight. And certainly, it's not like a inevitable win here for Oscar Valdez. It's certainly going to be a close fight. How do you see it, though? We've gone to predictions on this also.
I think it's going to be a very good fight. Oscar Valdez versus Quigg. Oscar Valdez is a very good fighter, so is Scott Quigg. But Oscar Valdez is a 2012 Olympian. Scott Quigg isn't. Scott Quigg has been in some good fights, so is Oscar Valdez. But if I'm going to have to go with the winner, I'm going to go Oscar Valdez on points, and I reckon it'll be a very tough fight for Quigg, but I'm going to go with Valdez win on points.
It's a really thrilling fight, this one. I'm really looking forward to it. This one, like I say, going to be on Sky Sports. Our listeners on Twitter have actually gone with Scott Quigg to win on points, and after that they've gone with Valdez to win on points. So Valdez, who's obviously quite a puncher, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, for the last few fights he's either been down himself or put his opponent down, something like the last 7 or 8 fights in a row. So he's always in exciting fights. Valdez, I think I'm going to go with him to win on points. I don't see him stopping Scott Quigg, but if he does, then that's a humongous statement. It really is, because if he does something that Carl Frampton couldn't do, then that'd be mega. But I think Scott Quigg, he's a tough guy. We've got to give him that at least. I think he goes the distance. But the listeners have gone with Quigg on points. Me and you agreeing, Ayaz, with Valdez on points. Moving over now to the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas, USA. A few fights to mention on here. This one as well being shown on Box Nation. It was a bit of a last-minute deal. They're going to be showing fights on Friday night tomorrow, and then, of course, on Saturday night also. So it's a great time to be a Box Nation subscriber. This bill, though, let's go through the names here. We've got Josecito Lopez, 35-7, taking on Hector Munoz, who is 25-19 with 1 draw, an 8-rounder there. Brandon Figueroa, that's the brother of Omar Figueroa. He's 14-0. He's in an 8-rounder against Giovanni Delgado, who's 16-6. Mario Barrios, he's 20-0, a bit of a prospect. Well, very much a prospect. He's in a 10-rounder against Udi Bernardo, who's 23-2. That's a good fight there. Richard Comey's also on this bill. His record 25-2, really good fighter. He takes on Alejandro Luna, who's 22-0. This is a brilliant bill, by the way. Rancis Barthélemy, 26-0 for the vacant WBA World Super-Lightweight title, takes on Kirill Relik. Kirill Relik, of course, former opponent of Ricky Burns. His record 21-2. This is a rematch between those two as well. In the first fight, Barthélemy actually was down, and also I think Relik got knocked down as well, but it was quite a close fight. So certainly going to be a great rematch. And top of the bill, the man that we'll be speaking to in just a few moments' time, Sergey Lipinets, 13-0 with 10 knockouts, takes on Mikey Garcia, 37-0. This one's for the IBF World Super-Lightweight title. Ayaz, what's your thoughts on that fight? Again, Lipinets really stepping up here. It's his first defence of the title. You've got to give him massive credit for taking on Mikey Garcia. But this, again, is Mikey Garcia's chance here to become a 4-weight world champion. Some stuff that, you know, boxers dream of winning a world title, but not many boxers dream of winning one in 4 different weight classes. It really is an elite short list of names that have done that.
This is going to be a very good fight for Mikey Garcia. In my opinion, Mikey Garcia is one of the pound-for-pound fighters. Obviously, we've seen him fight. He's a puncher as well. He's a very good boxer. He's got a very good coach with him. He's a top fighter as well. But if I'm going to go for a win, I'm going to go for Mikey Garcia, and I reckon Mikey Garcia is going to win on points.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I'm going to go with a Garcia knockout. Again, it hurts me to say it because Mikey Garcia is a massive friend of the show, and Sergey Lipinets I'm just about to speak to. So, you know, I wish both men the best of luck. But if I have to give a prediction, which I do because we're quite forceful on this show, it is what it is. So yeah, it is. You know, that's the way I'm going to see it. I think Garcia knocks him out, and 75% of our listeners also agree with that. Nobody reckons that Lipinets is going to win on points at all. They're actually giving Lipinets a knockout chance just as much as Garcia to win on points. 13% going with both of those outcomes. But yeah, I'm going with the listeners with a Garcia knockout there. But what a fight that is. And like I say, I give Lipinets humongous credit for taking this fight. But that's really it for the previewing. Just before we bring in the second guest, it's time to announce the competition winner for the BoxHard Podcast t-shirt that we'll be sending out. This was a competition on Twitter. We simply just said to retweet the tweet, and you know, that's about it. But we've actually had 107 retweets. Quite a few boxers have retweeted it too, just to get us a few more retweets. But yeah, 107 people have entered, Ayaz. So you've got the names in the hat, all 107 of them in that little small hat that you've got there. So just give them a little scramble and pick out one name and let us know, or let myself and the listeners know who's won the t-shirt this week.
Right. The winner of the competition and the t-shirt is Nathan Moose.
What's his Twitter handle, Ayaz?
N_Moose.
Okay, yes, I know that is. Yeah, he's been listening for quite a while now, so he's the winner. We will send out that t-shirt tomorrow. Ayaz will send it out with his special mail. He's got his own mail, Ayaz mail. It should come to you within about 3 months. No, I'm joking. It'll be there within a couple of days, of course. So congratulations, Nathan Muse. Thank you to everybody else that entered the competition, by the way. There will be a follow-up competition coming in probably about 2 weeks. I think we're going to have to order some more t-shirts in to keep these competitions going, because it was quite fun. Like I say, I didn't really realise that there was going to be that many people retweeting. So if you've retweeted, like I say, your name was in the hat. And thank you, everybody, for entering. Ayaz, from you as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Excellent stuff. Right, just before we wrap up part 2, there's one last thing to do. That, of course, is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated IBF Super-Lightweight World Champion, Mr. Sergey Lipinets. Sergey, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you. No problem. So, Sergey, you're now the champion of the world. Of course, you beat Akihiro Kondo last time out for the vacant title back in November. You won a unanimous decision. In your first defense here on Saturday, you're going to be fighting Mikey Garcia. So tell me, Sergey, why Mikey Garcia? Very good fighter. Big fight.
Потому что хочу известности и Конда очень хороший боксер, но он малоизвестен был. Поэтому мне хочется, чтобы меня узнавали. И хочу быть тоже звездой бокса. Поэтому хочу быть лучшим и держусь лучшим.
Well, first of all, hats off to Mr. Konda. He was a great fighter, and but unfortunately, he was not known to the public in boxing. And if you look at my first 13 fights, you will see that I was always fighting up, never fought down. And every opponent that I had was somebody that was not that easy to fight, and I prevailed. The reason I took Mikey, because that's number one priority for me, to fight the best and get on the top of the food chain as soon as possible. I believe that I possess that quality in boxing. I want fame, I want money, and everything else that comes with it.
And I want to ask you, Sergey, have you watched much video on Mikey Garcia? A lot of people say he's one of the best fighters in the world. Do you believe Mikey Garcia is one of the best fighters in the world, Sergey?
Я думаю, он из числа лучших боксеров мира, и поэтому мы взяли бой.
Well, absolutely, Mikey Garcia is one of the best fighters in the world. That's one of the reasons I agreed to fight him the second they offered that to me. And yes, I did watch his fight, but it really doesn't matter to me. It's still the same thing, you know, two hands, two legs, and one head. Just not a fighter.
And if you beat Mikey Garcia, you will become one of the biggest names in boxing. Everybody would be interested in Sergey Lipinets. Everybody would want to see your next fight. So if you beat Mikey Garcia, Sergey, who is next? Who do you want after that?
За этот бой, поэтому сначала мне нужно выиграть, а там уже мы посмотрим дальше, что будет.
First of all, I'm not looking past that day, the coming up fight. I'm not even going to consider anything else but Mikey Garcia. From what I heard, he's looking to fight this guy and that guy. I'm not going there. I'm not going to do that. I have to do my job on Saturday night, and then my team will figure out what's next for me.
Okay, yeah, I like that answer. Very clever. Now, I've seen Sergey training on video. I've seen him training on video. I've seen him pulling a car with a piece of rope. I thought that was crazy. I see Sergey pulling a car. It was amazing. Does Sergey do any other, cool techniques when he's training for a fight?
Что-то специальное, что-то разное. Мы меняем, что-то оставляем. И если это помогает выиграть, зачем что-то менять механизмы, если он работает?
Well, I'm training different from every fight, but the basics of my training regimen is the same. I mean, it's always worked for me, and why break it? Why fix it if it ain't broken? That's the main thing. I'm getting ready to fight the fight of my life, and everything is on the table for me.
And the last two questions now, Sergey. Obviously, you were born in Kazakhstan, just like Gennady Golovkin. Is Gennady perhaps a friend of yours, or at least are you a big fan of Gennady? Everybody loves Gennady, including the UK, of course.
Никаких отношений у нас с Геннадием нету, мы просто земляки, и виделись один-два раза. Я не хочу за счет имени Головкина пытаться там выделить свое какое-то имя. Я просто смотрю его бои, он мне очень нравится. Очень хороший боец, лучший в мире. И я горжусь, что он мой земляк.
Well, there's nothing that beyond the fact that we were born in the same place. I've met him one or two times. I love the way he fights. I'm his biggest fan, and always rooting for him to win. But I'm not trying to build my name and my legacy based on me being compared to Gennady Golovkin. I'm building my own legacy, and I want the name of Sergey Lipinets being mentioned in the context of being the best in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And the final question now, I want to ask you, what is your prediction for this fight on Saturday? How do you win this fight and defeat Mikey Garcia and take his undefeated record away? Is it points or is it a knockout? How do you see it? Of course, you can punch as well. 10 knockouts from 13 wins.
Никаких предсказаний, мы будем делать свою работу, стараться выиграть. Буду стараться выиграть. И как это получится, мы не знаем, это бокс. Ну, конечно же, каждый из нас хочет выиграть нокаутом, ведь это и есть красивое завершение боксерского вечера, поэтому мы будем стараться.
I can't predict anything. I'm just gonna go out there and fight. And of course, he's a fighter. I'm the fighter, and everybody's gonna strive for a KO. This is the ultimately. This is what every fighter is aiming for in a boxing match, and that's what he's gonna do. He just said, whichever way it comes, he's gonna win.
Okay, listen, Sergey, thank you for your time. Best of luck for Saturday. Good luck, and we will speak again soon, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Speak soon.
You got it. All right.
Okay, now it's time to conclude episode 125 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A big thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the undefeated WBO Featherweight World Champion, Mr. Oscar Valdez, and the undefeated IBF Super-Lightweight World Champion, Mr. Sergey Lipinets. Also, a little thank you to his translator, Alex, as well. The Prediction League currently stands at you, the listeners, in the lead with 30 points now, due to the fact that the listeners, and I want to say well done now for getting a full house of correct predictions last week, which was also what Ayaz did as well. Those picks, by the way, were Kovalev to win by knockout, Bivol to win by knockout, Josh Taylor to win by knockout, Kell Brook to win by knockout, and Wilder to win by knockout, which of course all happened. I missed it by one because I went with Ortiz to win by knockout, which nearly happened, by the way. So yeah, Ayaz is on 28 points, you the listeners with 30, and me way behind with 21. Please remember, if you do get a chance, to leave us a review on iTunes, because they mean a lot to us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy your weekends, people, which I'm sure you will, and we will see you next week.